Hey guys, happy podcast day. Welcome back to the Strong Girl Goss podcast. This is episode 10, double digits, baby. Consistent queens, as always.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about nutrition protocols to support your strength training. But before we go into that, win of the week. Jess, what you got?
Okay, so my win of the week this week is that I went on a run in the first time in about 3 to 4 months. If you know me, you know that I am not a runner. And when I was out there, I just feel so out of sync. I don't know if you can relate, Ella, but I'm just not a runner. I'm not built for it. I feel very heavy. I feel very much like a weightlifter with my little technique. I don't even think I have much arm swinging going on, to be honest. Quite embarrassing. However, that is my win. It's something that is quite a nemesis. Don't like it, but took myself out there and got it done. Purely, I just wanted to prove to myself that I was still fit and I could still go and do it.
And you did do it. Whenever I run, I always feel like a rugby player. Big old chunk. My win of the week, I made 2 new high protein meals, very balanced meals actually. I made a chicken curry and like a salmon pasta thing. It was very, very nice. And I was proud of myself for trying something new.
Love that, because over here I'm a creature of habit. I will rinse and repeat the same things. And just first of all, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, if you just find meals that you really enjoy, it's not a bad thing. But when you do try something new, I think it's good to mix it up sometimes. And speaking of that, I've got a Gusto box coming today, so I will be trying 4 new meals that I can report back on next week.
Gusto review incoming.
Okay, so disclaimer for this episode, guys, we are not nutritionists, we are not dietitians. We're going to be keeping this guidance super straightforward, super simple. If you are looking for something more in depth, then I would suggest that you head over to a nutrition podcast, but we do want to just provide you with some essential information that will help you support your training. So this is going to be nutrition all about supporting strength training. So just really putting that out there.
At the moment, there's loads of buzzwords. You know, you've got your gut health, your blood sugar. And if you want to learn about those things, head to a different podcast. But we're here to almost like take away the noise and just tell you, if you are just starting out and you want to make good nutrition habits to support your strength training, what you need to be focusing on and what you need to be prioritizing.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to start first of all by talking about like what is food and breaking it down a bit. So in its simplest form, food is made up of macronutrients, micronutrients, right? And they sound like super scary words. But if we go into macronutrients first, that is a combination of carbs, fats, and protein. So we'll very briefly touch on the main role of each of those that they play into your diet, so then you can understand when should I be having what. And to be honest, you should be having a combination of all 3 of those things, ideally in every single meal that you have. I'm very big on that. That is how you're going to create a balanced meal. But we are also going to very briefly touch on things like what is best for pre-workout and what is best for post-workout. So starting off first of all with the role of carbohydrates. They are your main source of energy. And I know so many people are so fearful of eating them, but carbs are what is going to give you energy to train. So please, please, please don't be cutting those out.
Yeah, I think especially on Instagram, we see people banging on about protein, but carbs are just as important. But going on to protein is your recovery. So it helps our muscles repair. And if you don't have good recovery, you're not going to be able to feel ready to go into the gym again. So pairing that with carbs and you've got a good little mix.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, protein is the buzzword of the fitness industry, right? And
yeah,
it is important to support your recovery and training, just like Ella said, and to build muscle mass. But carbs are just as important, and alongside of those, fats are just as important as well. So fats are here to support hormone health, to help the body absorb vital minerals. So again, they've all got their parts to play, and by having a combination of each of those as regular as possible, so in your 3 meals a day, ideally, you are essentially, in simple form, providing your body with everything it needs to function, is the simplest way that I can explain it. So carbs, protein, fats. We've also got micronutrients. So when I'm talking micronutrients, I'm talking about vitamins, minerals, and they are usually found in things like fruit, veg, not just those, they can be found in other foods as well. Veg is a really easy way for you to get those in. So I always refer to fruit and veg as colour, because I'm like, just get all the colour in. How colourful can you make your meals? And a simple way to describe micronutrients is it's going to support the immune system, keep you well. We've got a brief overview of macronutrients, micronutrients. We're going to talk more about what we are qualified to talk about. How can that support your strength training journey? So Ella, let's start first of all with pre-workout. What should we be having pre-workout to ensure that we have a successful session?
Pre-workout, you want to be focusing on your carbs. So I know a lot of us train early morning. I think, we all want to hit a protein target, or we all want to get high protein or whatever, but pre-workout is not the kind of time to be focusing on that. So before you work out, you want to be having some simple to digest carbohydrates. So Lucozade Sport, that's a drink. That's really, really easy to digest. Even if you just have a juice or a smoothie, if you really struggle eating in the morning, something liquid is going to be much easier for you. But if you are able to eat in the morning, then it's something like a banana, a breakfast bar, Soreen bar. These things that you can just grab and go are all going to be your best friend. And then if you're not training in the morning, if you do have, a time to train maybe after lunch or in the evening and you've had a big meal, maybe you don't need that pre-workout snack. If you've had a meal within 2 hours or 90 minutes, then that is going to be your fuel to train.
Yeah, I think it's just important to remember that food is fuel, right? So if you are heading off to the gym and you've got a 60-minute session that requires energy from you, if you are not turning up with any fuel in your body, how can you expect to perform well? So it really is just about providing your body with the fuel it needs to perform.
And I just say as well, your pre-workout powder that you got from the internet for a tenner is not sufficient. That is just basically caffeine and sugar that is going to put you on a buzz and make you feel like you have energy, but it's false. You're much better off having a piece of toast. You don't need to spend your money on your pre-workouts that you see on TikTok.
Honestly, that could be a whole new episode, but pre-workout gives me the fear. I've had it once in my life. And genuinely I nearly caught myself an ambulance. Like, I'm not even joking. I'm not joking. I was getting so itchy, so tingly. It was terrible. I did not feel like I had any extra energy for my workout. I was just panicking that I was okay. I was like, am I okay? But anyway, completely off topic. No. So when we're talking pre-workout, we're not talking supplements. We're not talking the powder form. We are talking fuel. So going into post-workout, it's going to be very similar, kind of in the reverse. So for example, if you didn't have a big meal before you trained, are you going to have your big meal afterwards? It really is going to be person dependent and when do you train? So again, if you are training in the morning, then your post-workout might be a full breakfast. So let's go back to saying you had that Lucozade Sport or a glass of orange juice before you trained. And now post-workout, you are going to have your bowl of oats, or you're going to have your Weetabix or whatever it is that you have for breakfast. I'm not telling you what to eat for breakfast, have what you want. Again, it really depends on when you train. So maybe, again, if you're training in the evening and you are going to be fueling afterwards with your evening meal, that is going to be enough for your post-workout. So as long as you are having something pre and post-training, and it would all be person dependent to when you train, depending on what you would have and like the amount that you would have. I hope that's making sense.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that if this stuff is really like, oh my God, I don't know when I train, I don't know when or what I should be having, to simplify, carbs before you train, carbs and protein after you train. And like Jess said, it depends when you train, right? If you've trained after your breakfast, sort of mid-morning, maybe it's just a protein shake you have. Maybe you could add a banana to that protein shake to just bump it up with a bit of carbs. Or it's your evening meal, but it's just assuming that these things are going to be balanced with your protein, with your carbs, with your fats, which we'll go on to talk about a little bit more later.
Yeah, I think let's touch on like building a meal very, very briefly. So we've just explained the roles that the carbs, fats and protein play. So when you are building a balanced meal, whether that's pre-workout, post-workout, and just your breakfast, lunch, or your evening meal, you want to be thinking about having a source of each of those. So let's take breakfast, for example, right? One of my favorite breakfasts, I might have oats. And to get a mixture of each of those macronutrients, I might add in a scoop of protein powder. So then I've got my carbs from the oats. I've also got my protein from the scoop of protein powder. And then I might have a teaspoon of peanut butter to get some fats in. And then to add on the top, I might have some berries. And that would essentially get those 4 things in that I'm looking for. We could go further, but again, this isn't the podcast for it. No one come at us. We could go further into having fiber in your diet and having this, okay? But keeping it simple, I use something called the 4-tick method. And when I'm making meals for myself or my clients, that is what I'm asking them to look at. Have you got some fats, some carbohydrates, some protein, some micronutrients? If yes, then you can probably guarantee it's quite balanced. And again, it could have more in, we could keep going on forever, but that is a really, really good starting point to really start asking yourself, has my meal got those 4 things in?
And I think that's a much better place to start than jumping straight onto MyFitnessPal and counting your calories. I think we're all really quick these days to say, oh, I've got a nutrition goal, I've got a body goal, I've got a training goal, let me count calories. It's not for everyone necessary, in my opinion. For some people, it's going to make you feel overwhelmed. And I'd much rather you have that balanced plate, that 4-tick method, like Jess just said, and make sure you're getting your protein in, your carbs in at the right times of day with 3 balanced meals, than be obsessed over a number or obsessed over, calculating macros. That's, again, not applicable for everyone or for every goal. So I think that method of filling your plate with balanced sort of your carbs, your protein, your fats, your micronutrients is a really, really good place to start before spending a tenner a month on MyFitnessPal.
I think counting calories is, again, a whole different topic, but just touching on that so briefly, counting calories isn't necessary for everyone. If you have got a goal that you really want to reach, i.e. fat loss, muscle gain, weight gain or something, that is when I would be looking at counting calories. And honestly, if you don't have much experience on it, that's when I would be investing in a coach or a nutritionist or someone to help you with that side of things, because it can get so confusing. It can also get very consuming and very addictive. So I would just say to just start, first of all, with how balanced are my meals being? And let's talk about snacks. Snacks are not a bad thing. I think sometimes people associate snacking with like bad habits, but I think snacks are actually really good if you are snacking on the right things. So I always encourage my clients to snack on something maybe high protein based. So maybe that's like a protein bar rather than, let's say, having 3 chocolate bars. It's a really easy, good swap. Or something like a piece of fruit. So maybe that is an orange or an apple or, a pot of berries or something. So if you can make your snacks more like high protein or maybe just micronutrients that are going to get your body what it needs, then that is not a bad thing at all. And by the way, you can also have other snacks. But if you are a snacker, just know that that's not a bad thing, because I know that I am definitely a snacker. And it's something that I get asked a lot. Like, is it bad that I'm snacking this much? Not if you make it fit into your day and you're still providing your body with what it needs with it.
Yeah, for sure.
So to wrap all of that up, start creating balanced plates. And if you need some inspiration, go onto TikTok, Instagram. There's so much out there to get some ideas for meals. If you are interested in educating yourself more on it, then there is plenty of amazing nutritionists out there as well. But I hope that's just give you a brief overview. We're now going to go into supplementation.
Yeah, so it's a question I get asked quite a lot, I think. And I think sometimes we think of supplementation as, your magnesium, omega-3, vitamins and stuff like that. But let's not forget that protein powder and protein bars, they are supplements. They're not whole foods. They're things that you can add in. I think when I first started training and I was hearing, protein to achieve your goals, I was just shoving as much protein powder, as much protein bars down my throat as I could to try and achieve these goals. And I think it's not for everyone. You don't need those protein powders or those protein bars to get to where you want to be. If you are having a naturally high protein diet anyway, you might not need to invest in a protein powder. Or maybe it's just 1 scoop every couple of days just to bump that number up. Maybe having protein powder is part of your daily routine. Either way, it is absolutely fine. And it's more of it's not a necessity. Protein powder isn't going to be any better for you than a piece of chicken or a piece of steak or whatever your protein source is. It's just going to bump up that protein target as a whole. It's not going to do any magic.
I think that's a key point there. Supplements are not magic in any way. However, things like protein powder can be super helpful. So for me, for example, I will have maybe like a scoop of protein powder with my breakfast or something. And that's just, again, just to help boost that protein intake. So I think it's just really person dependent. Are you getting enough protein in from whole foods alone? If the answer is yes, it's not a magic supplement. You do not need to add it. If you are maybe vegetarian, vegan, or maybe just someone who isn't like that keen on meat, like myself, like I will eat it, but I don't want to be having like a steak for breakfast, for example. So that is where I would maybe think about adding in some supplements just to help me out slightly. So yeah, I think one of the biggest myths that you do hear is like, you need to have your protein shake as soon as you've finished working out. And it's like, it's not going to do anything magic just by having that protein shake. You could go home and have your chicken, rice and broccoli for your evening meal and it would do exactly the same thing, is what we're trying to say. So only introduce supplements if necessary. Try and get protein in from your diet alone first. And then if you can't, add it in. So, and just touching on protein bars, for example, I would rather you eat a protein bar than 3 Mars bars. There's nothing wrong with a Mars bar. Go and have a Mars bar. But it's just about making super mindful swaps. If you are someone who is heading towards a higher protein diet and you've got a protein target to hit, by just having that protein bar instead of the Mars bar, it's just going to help you out. So it really is just about making small swaps. But I would really encourage you to do your own research on supplements. Look into, is it essential for me as an individual? If the answer is yes, cool, invest in some. If not, like, you don't need to be buying them for the sake of buying them. So protein shakes, protein bars, also like you mentioned at the very start, things like omega-3, multivitamins. I really, again, this will be person dependent. Like, I would be encouraging people to take them if it is suitable for them. So let's take omega-3 as one example. If you are somebody who eats 2 pieces of oily fish per week on average, you're not going to need omega-3 because over a week period, you're getting in that recommended intake. So for someone like me who doesn't eat fish at all, I will be taking that omega-3 as a supplement to really just help me out, because I'm not going to be getting in a sufficient amount of omega-3 through my own diet alone because I don't eat fish, for example. You can, of course, get omega-3 from other sources, nuts, seeds, all of those things. Is it going to be a sufficient amount? It's just about you thinking, is this right for me? And this is where, again, I'll just lean into doing your research.
For sure. And I think one that everyone should be taking is creatine. I used to be really scared of creatine. I thought it was like a steroid. I think I'm like in my own boat there because not many other people think that. But there is a question. It's definitely not steroid, but there is always a question of, should I be taking creatine? Or maybe I should wait till I'm a bit stronger to take creatine. And it's like, no, creatine is going to aid your recovery, muscle growth, strength, things like brain health. Even if you're not strength training regularly, it's still something that A, your body produces, and B, we could all use a little more of. So adding that in is something that's definitely going to support your training, and you will absolutely see the difference of if you take it every day. But something as well that I would just like to touch on is the quality of these supplements. So if you are getting a multivitamin or omega-3, just check in the content of omega-3 or that multivitamin, how much of the stuff that you're buying or think you're buying is in that. So sometimes, I know it's annoying, cheaper isn't always better. So getting supplements that are widely available, you can walk into Asda, oh, that's the cheapest one, so I'm going to get that. You may as well just save your money and just have an extra portion, like Jess said, of maybe oily fish, or an extra portion of, if it's vitamin C, an extra portion of something with vitamin C in it, rather than getting a cheap supplement. You may as well spend a little bit more and it actually do what it's meant to do.
I think with supplements, I know I've already said this, but just leaving on the note of, it's so important for you to do your own research. I think they've got to benefit you as an individual. So we're not going to touch any more on that, guys, because that's just not our area. We do hope that these small tips that we have given you have just helped you have a starting point or a better understanding. And if any questions are coming up for you off the back of this, please feel free to just drop it into our DMs, and we would love to elaborate if we can and give you as much advice as we can, or point you in the right direction, because there is no shame in going somewhere else to gain that knowledge if it is something that you are super interested in and want to gain more knowledge on. So anything else to wrap up, or is that it?
I don't think so.
Okay, so please, guys, leave us a review if you can. It really is helping us spread the word about the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe or follow on the platform that you are watching on. And other than that, we'll see you next week for episode 11.
Episode 11. See you next week, guys.
Bye.